The Super Speedway Podcast is a Dream Bigger media production. For news, photos, show notes, and information about advertising on the podcast, visit www.thesuperspeedway.com.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Super Speedway.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to stay as low as I could, and he just rode on my door. That's just a really inexperienced racer and a really bad move there. And got the air on, got on beside me and just kept going up the racetrack. I couldn't do anything with the wheels. So got a really inexperienced guy in a really fast car that made a really bad move and then wrecked me, down the back straightaway, hooked me to the right. So just probably the reason that he'll never get to drive many of them again.
Welcome to episode 77 of the Super Speedway Podcast, recorded Wednesday, September 5th, 2018. I'm your host, Eric Young. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, James Cush. James, how's it going?
Good, man. I thought for a moment tonight that I might not be able to call in because we had one heck of a thunderstorm roll through.
Yes.
Kind of like Kevin Harvick rolling through Ross Chastain. How's that?
That was good.
Tying it in right there.
We could call it a transition, but we're not going to talk about that yet.
No, we'll get there.
We got rain, but we managed to avoid the storm. So we didn't last week because last week was rough. But
I think it's been raining in Michigan for 30 days?
It's been quite a bit, but
I haven't finished the arc in the backyard yet. But
people were complaining about it being too dry, so they got their wish.
I tell you what, man, we got all of summer's rain in the last week.
Yeah, well, the last week and back in June for MIS.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that's the gap. It didn't rain in July or the first 28 days of August,
right.
But we've got it.
I would beg to differ. We also battled a lot of rain at Tri-City Motor Speedway this year on Friday nights because we had a few rainouts and or watching the radar all night long. So
yes, well, that makes the track owner happy when he has to constantly look at the app while he's also trying to do 100,000 other things at the racetrack.
Right, exactly. So speaking of racing and speaking of rain and weather and whatnot, we had a rain delay or a lightning delay before the start of the Southern 500. It was the Bojangles Southern 500 at Darlington this past weekend. And once the lightning stopped and we got on the track, which I don't think it really delayed things too much, Brad Keselowski comes out and gets it done after, pretty much it was the Kyle Larson show all night long. And then Brad sneaks through at the end and gets the win. So, I don't know. Where do we want to start, James?
I feel like we were having a good conversation. Was it maybe a pod or two ago when we were talking a little bit about Brad Keselowski and how he's just not, the Penske cars are just not there.
Right.
I don't know what this win means in the grand scheme of things, but, it's a crown jewel for Brad, which just kind of adds to his career resume. And, it's in a season where it doesn't look like he's having, he's been consistently good. He's, been locked into the playoffs for a little while here, but getting that monkey off the back, does it open up any doors down the road, do you think, for him right now? Or
other than the confidence showing that, he's got the win now, he can stop worrying about that. Not that he was worried so much. He's in the playoffs.
Yeah, get a few playoff points there.
Yeah, it might open things up a little bit for him. I still think they're off a bit.
Yeah, they seem that way to me too.
And I think we're going to talk here in a little bit about some moves for this season that I think are going to affect the rest of the season. And I think we've gone from a 3-car race to a 2-car race. And I think there's room now for another. And obviously 2 more are going to be in that final. But I don't know. I don't think this solidifies Brad as the guy yet. There was a lot of talk about, it's a 1.5 mile track because Darlington's kind of a 1.5 mile, but it's really not at all. And I don't feel like there's, maybe you can say some similarities to Homestead, but I don't know. As much as they say it, I don't even buy that. It's two different.
No, it's its own thing.
Both ends are different. There's no racetrack. The racetrack is the groove, and the groove is the racetrack. It's not wider to have more than that.
Yep.
The tire wear is more there than pretty much anywhere else. Maybe Atlanta is close, but Homestead's wearing out, but it's not to the level of Darlington at all.
No.
Which is amazing because Darlington is a fresher track than Homestead.
Yeah, it is, and it's aging quickly.
Yeah.
which is good. We like that.
They need
that
other
makes for better
tracks to
racing.
age. Like they need sand blowing across these tracks. That's what
Yep.
we need because that's what does
All
it in
year long.
Darlington. So,
Yes, sir.
but I don't know. I don't buy it as this is the turnaround point for Brad. I mean, maybe in the long run we'll see it as that. But
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Brad's still a shot for the championship. You know, anything, especially with this system. You know, Brad can get hot at any point and win it. He's definitely
Yeah.
got that capability. I would propose running the Miller Genuine Draft Scheme the rest of the year, though, because that was
Aha.
sweet.
Yeah, your favorite paint scheme coming out on top too.
Yes,
Which was,
and my pick for the
well
race
cut.
almost won it. So
Yeah. You had a pretty good. Yeah, you had a pretty good Darlington.
yeah, it was a good Darlington.
Come to think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was kind of perusing Brad's numbers for the season. There's really nothing spectacular. He's not even, you know, like he's been consistent, but his average finish is off from even his career average just a tick. So, just kind of down across the board, but still consistent enough compared to, you know, when you only have a handful of guys winning races. He's done enough to be a playoff contender, but you know, I guess you know, thinking back on last year, we didn't really think he'd make the Final Four there, and was able to do it. So, you know, a guy who's got experience, he's got a championship. I guess, you know, if you look at the rest of the playoff field, that kind of gives him a little bit of a leg up in that sense.
Right. Well, let me do this. Let me answer your question outright, and then I'll ask you the same question. To answer your question outright, in a roundabout way, Brad's not one of the Final Four.
Yeah.
And do you agree with that? I mean, is that, or do you think he's one of the Final Four?
I've got him. Boy, I don't want to be on the fence on this. I got him just on the outside. I'd say he's probably a fifth or sixth.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, I think he's right on the outside, on the cusp. But if something breaks his way, maybe a win at Talladega where he's very good. If you think about the schedule, you know, the Roval could be, you know, a track where things go crazy and he gets a boatload of points. You never know. He's a great road course racer, and he's really great at the super speedway. So those are two bullets in his gun that he's got kind of over other drivers. So I think I don't think it's going to push him over the edge, though. I think he's maybe the first guy out.
Let's play a real quick game, and I'm throwing you for a complete loop here because
That's good. I like
talk about this.
I like this.
At this point in the season, and maybe we should wait till next week to do this, but let's do it now. At this point in the season, well, next week we're going to do our brackets, right?
Yes, we are. Yep,
So-
we got to fill them up.
So let's do this now. Top four. Who's your Final Four? At this point, looking at just how things are, just without thinking about it a whole lot, who's your Final Four? Because I have it. I have mine.
Yeah, I think I've got mine too. I'm going to go Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and then I'm going to go Larson, and I'm going to go Kurt Busch.
Okay, you're going Kurt.
I think
I'm
so
the
right
same
now,
with the first
today.
three. I'm going Chase Elliott as my fourth. I don't
Yeah,
know
that's a
why.
good
I
one.
just feel that he's been
Again.
strong. You know.
The Roval's a great equalizer, and you've got Martinsville in there.
Yeah.
And I think those are two
Well,
nice
and
tracks for Chase.
Not
You
only
gotta-
that, but you've also got ISM, where he almost got in last year. into
Yeah,
the
you
Final
got to
Four.
really think about the schedule here. That's a big part of it.
Yep.
And that's kind of why I like Kurt just a little bit. I like him maybe at Martinsville, where he's had a couple of wins there, had some good success. Even though his season looks like he's a driver on the move.
Right.
I think he might be better suited only because he's in a Stewart-Haas car. I really got to put two. For me, I have to put two Stewart-Haas cars in the Final Four.
Kurt's just so
I know.
inconsistent, though. It's
I
like,
could change my mind. I
would pick
next week.
Boyer before I'd pick Clint or pick Kurt.
Boyer seems to have really cooled lately.
He's not consistent either, but he's more consistent than Kurt, I feel.
And over the course of the season, Kurt does have a few more points. He doesn't have the win total. He's one back there, but he's earned more points, which is, I guess, the differentiator there. But I gotta have two. I just feel like when we get to Homestead, there's gonna be two Stewart-Haas cars, and yeah, Boyer's the other guy. Almirola's obviously he's not ready,
No.
but he's done some great things in that car this year. Not to disparage that,
Right.
but yeah, I think two Stewart-Haas cars are going to Homestead, and that's going to be a storyline we have to watch.
I don't think Almirola needs to even make the second to last round of the playoffs.
He's done enough. That car has been that good.
to be a success this season.
Yeah, great season for him.
Yeah.
No matter what happens from here on out.
I mean, where'd Danica finish last year? Like 60th in points? Anything better than that is
that car's never sniffed the playoffs,
right.
and he's locked in with a race to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fantastic.
You've got in the notes here. I mentioned Kyle Larson. You let another great run get away, and there's no. I mean, I don't think it was Larson necessarily who let it get away.
Yeah, the team. We should say.
But just last year that was the difference in Larson versus previous years. Is Larson managed to close some races.
Yep.
And this year is just he has not been able to close again. It's back to the old Kyle Larson.
He's got that Chase Elliott thing going on where it's good runs, and maybe part of that is he's as we've stated plenty of times, and I think everybody in the industry knows he's outperforming the seat that he's in. And so whatever gains he's making, there's going to be times where that lapses. But to lead that many laps, and let it get away when it's your day, especially with a crown jewel race like the Southern 500, it's got to be disappointing. But on the other hand, not to take moral victories too seriously, man, what another great run for him.
Oh man,
the consistency's there, the speed's there.
He stunk up the show.
He did.
He took one of the best races of the year and made it a snoozer.
He did, and that's why I love him getting to Homestead, and just like I did last year, even without a win, he's got this. It's like he's right there.
So how long does Kyle Larson continue to stay with a lower tiered team? I mean, he's the talk. Everybody talks. I can't imagine that he couldn't go anywhere he wanted. Right now, anywhere he could call anybody. The only one is maybe not Joe Gibbs, but anywhere else, he's got a spot there. Anybody else is going to sign him.
Yeah.
How long does he stay at Chip Ganassi?
He's pretty dang loyal, but
is that a mistake, or does Chip Ganassi have what it takes to get that extra step?
I don't know. A lot of this.
I mean, you could argue they're the top Chevy team right now.
Well, and
but
Casey Kane at one point, and not to they're two different drivers,
right.
But when Casey Kane went to Hendrick, there was a lot of, oh boy, here he comes.
True.
And it never happened. And maybe this is just the perfect marriage for Larson right now. Right. I think if you put him in like a Stewart-Haas car or a Gibbs car, it's it's a whole different story. He's right there with Harvick and Kyle Busch, and he's doing stuff. He's close to those guys without the wins right now as it is. But the numbers show he's, statistically, it's one of the best talents out there. It's not just the eye test. It's data too.
Well, it's not just the NASCAR test. It's anything he gets behind the wheel of.
Yep, he's got that Tony Stewart thing where it's just whatever seat he's in, he's going to be up front. He's going to be competitive. And he's going to put on one heck of a show. And he's been doing that. So
I mean, that's the question: is how many races has the team cost Kyle Larson?
Right.
I mean, that one, you can't blame it all on the pit crew necessarily, but how many races has the team itself cost him?
Being on that team. If you look comparatively to that one car, he's he's so far ahead of what the other cars.
And Jamie McMurray's not garbage by any means. Jamie Mac's a good driver.
He's not Paul. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. Not about saying.
I mean, hey, Jamie Mack got a 9th place finish this week.
Yeah, he had a good run. He did have a good run.
Out. So
yeah,
good for him. He beat Denny Hamlin, one of the kings of Darlington.
Yeah,
so.
Denny Hamlin probably his worst race ever at Darlington, a 10th place finish. Jeez. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I really, it's hard for me. I really thought last year was the year for Larson. Like, yeah, he's going to break through. He's going to win this championship, and circumstances. Didn't play out, but he got to Homestead and he was one of the guys.
But there you go again. The team cost him the chance to run for the championship last year.
That team I hope that they take some experience learned from not only last season, but nights like we had on Sunday, and they navigate the playoffs with it. Use it. Yeah. It's okay to lose. It's okay to lose this race. And it's not the end of the world. He's locked in. Use it. Take that lesson and use it. And I hope that, for the sake of the show at Homestead and for the playoffs, it's better when you've got Kyle Larson in there. Yeah. It's just going to be a better show.
I agree.
That's That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I just think if you want the best drivers in the sport, I think he's right. He's in that conversation.
Right.
And I want to see him in there.
Yeah, I agree. Aside from a couple little issues, mostly with Jeffrey Earnhardt losing control, the only real on-track major incident was Clint Bowyer with one of the weirdest wrecks ever, where he pile drives Newman as Newman's coming to pit road. First of all, thank goodness they're both okay. I mean, it was a heck of a hit.
He hit him hard.
You have it on the show notes, James. You did the show notes this week, so you start. What do you want to talk about with that?
Well, I just wanted to know what happened there.
Did you listen to the DBC this week?
That's where I was going to kind of lead you, because I know you're a door bumper clear guy.
Well, I am not actually. My wife
haven't
is.
listened to it yet. Ah, okay.
But as I was looking for the audio clip today of Kevin Harvick that I played at the beginning, which I knew instantly that was the audio clip I was going to use for the intro, I stumbled across a 1-minute clip from Door Bumper Clear where Brett Griffin talks about what happened.
Yes.
So essentially what happened is Clint Bowyer was complaining on the radio about his car being loose or tight or something. I don't remember which. I think it was tight. And he was on the radio complaining as he went into turn 3. And so Brett Griffin couldn't tell him that there's a car slowing down because they're two-way radios or one-way. I don't know what that. If one person's talking, yeah, exactly,
yeah.
Exactly.
Not like our podcast where we constantly talk over each other.
Right. If you talk at the same time as somebody else, it's gibberish. So Brett was waiting to talk. Now it did seem during the actual race that Brett also was not entirely aware that Newman was pitting to begin with. But, yeah, so basically the closing rate there is so great anyway. And then you're talking a track that's super skinny. They were side by side. So Bowyer's just going to the inside to make the pass because he's faster than them. And all of a sudden Newman stops and Bowyer wrecks into the back of him. And then Bowyer wants to know what happened, but he's on the freaking radio. That's what happened, Clint.
Clint getting into accidents involving his own spotter is like a problem.
Yeah.
If you think back to the spin gate, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah.
Many years ago at his MWR days, but yeah, just a strange wreck. And I don't know.
Radio communication with Bowyer. I kind of feel like Bowyer's like that ADD guy that you can't always get through to anyway. Because it was Chicago, right? That he had to come down pit road 3 times to serve his penalty because he couldn't get it right.
Yeah, and he was jabbering.
Yeah. I feel like that was the same sort of thing. So I think trying to talk to Clint on the radio, it's hard enough to sit at a press conference with him.
Yeah,
because it's like any shiny object he sees, he's off on that tangent. But
can you imagine if he's the way he is? Can you imagine what his son Cash is like?
Oh my God, I cannot. Imagine.
I mean,
now don't get me wrong. I love Clint, and I would love to hang out with Clint for a weekend.
Yeah, he's the driver. Like, if you are gonna have a good time with one of the current drivers in the sport, it's like him and Blaney and maybe Chase. A couple of the younger guys. But he's the guy.
He's a guy we need in the sport. He's got a great personality. We love it.
Yeah, and you were there for having celebration at MIS, so you got to see it front and center. Inebriated Clint, having a good time.
A few beers in after the victory.
Yeah, I just thought it was what a crazy wreck, and man, the camera angle that NBC had for it was spot on.
Right,
like flowing through the corner, and how often have we seen a pile drive? It doesn't quite happen like that.
Well, it just goes to show you anything can happen at any point. These races sometimes seem like fast. Yeah, they just seem, and I was at Chicagoland where the fall off is really great. Michigan was the same way at a couple points. I'm trying to think, there was another track that anyway, there's just the fall off on these cars is so much that the closing rate is huge, and you don't realize it when you're watching it on TV. Like I said, Chicagoland, they were approaching cars so fast. Like the trucks, especially in the truck race, the closing rate was just gigantic, and like it's amazing that we don't see more of this type of stuff.
Well, and we saw a couple of accidents at Darlington, or a couple of instances of this. Joey Gase and Kyle Busch being one of them. Right. Joey Gase is going to consistently be a slower car, and Kyle just flat out, drove up on him and hooked him. Yeah. And not trying to say that Kyle just wrecked him on purpose. That's not what I'm saying.
In fact, he got on the radio and complained immediately afterwards that when he got close to a car, his front end pushed up.
Yeah,
And that's the
he's
thing
just-
is you pushing off the turns coming out at Darlington. There's no room. You're going to
Right.
hit the guy.
Yeah, we're going to talk about another accident here shortly.
Yeah.
That had something similar
Yeah.
to do with some of this stuff. But
Well, and before we talk about
yeah.
that, before we talk about the rest of the Darlington Cup race, let's talk a little bit about the Austin Dillon contact with Kyle Larson at the end of the first stage.
oh yeah, that was yeah.
Dillon fights to stay on the lead lap, manages to pull it off by basically chopping Larson a little bit coming off the turn. I just want to go on the record and say that this is on the same par for me as Ricky Stenhouse booting Kyle Busch out of the way at Martinsville
Yep.
last year. I
Yep.
love this. You
Yeah.
know, a caution's coming. That's one of the things the stage racing brings. He's in better position if he stays on the lead lap. And he raced back to and fought him off and stayed on the lead lap. And of course, Larson
Yeah.
paid him back at the end of the second stage by lapping him. But still, I mean, I don't want my guy to, if he's a lap down or going a lap down, I still don't want him to sit back and let it happen. Fight for it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's like any other sport, you know, that you play to the whistle, and that green and white checkered flag is a whistle in sports. It's the end of a quarter, an end of a half.
It's just like Kevin Harvick passing Kurt Busch coming back to the end of the stage at Chicago. You know,
Yeah.
that stuff. That's what we get with stage racing. And anybody,
Yep.
the people that argue against stage racing are the people that say, "Well, let's keep the stages, but we just won't have cautions at the end of the stages. Let's let them race through."
Yeah, it's stupid. No.
That doesn't work. And I'm sorry. You know, I get the whole purism thing and all that stuff. And I don't agree with everything that NASCAR did. I am not a NASCAR apologist by any means, but I think stage racing is the greatest thing NASCAR has done, period. Does it work
Yeah.
everywhere? No. I still don't think it works on road courses. I still am not a fan of it on super speedways, but am I willing to give those races up for what it does everywhere else? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
yeah,
I don't want a different rule necessarily at those tracks because although I feel like there's a place for it, we run 4 stages at Charlotte for the 600. I don't see why we couldn't do something different at a road course, but I think it's the greatest thing we've done in our sport.
Yeah, it's been good the last couple of years. We've really enjoyed it. We've had some really good moments that we wouldn't have seen, you know, a handful of moments here and there that, you know, we never would have had. You know, this was another example of it. Like, you know, hey, Austin Dillon, he had the ball.
Yep.
You know, he took the shot. You got to do it.
Yep.
You got to. It's what his team needs
It's a
to do.
race.
Yep, it's a race.
We're
and he's
racing.
racing to a flag.
Yep.
It's not the checkered flag, but yeah, he's racing to a flag.
It's just like, I mean, Boyer was complaining about the lap cars. That's the sport, man. That's what we
Yep.
got. It's never been any different. As a matter of
Yep.
fact, there's fewer lap cars now than there used to be, except at one point during during Sunday's race.
When Larson had a 13-second lead.
Yeah, and there were 3 cars left on the lead lap at the caution.
So man,
But I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's what our sport is. You know, it's just like, you know, when in the NFL or the, you know, Major League Baseball or hockey, when you go to the playoffs, you only play against the playoff teams. In NASCAR, they're all still there. You know,
Yep.
everybody's still
Yep.
there, and that's how the sport is.
running for that race, man.
Yep.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Oh, that was good. We just ummed at the same time.
Yeah.
We've been doing this long enough. We've got that down.
Right.
I did want to ask you really quick,
Yes.
before we move on from the Cup race. So after seeing all the cars on track, did your favorite paint scheme change?
Yes, and that's how I wanted. You have in the notes how great is the throwback weekend, which is no better way of putting it because the throwback
Right.
weekend is awesome. I think everybody agrees on that. There's nobody that I've not yet seen somebody that goes, man, I really wish we didn't do this throwback thing.
Yeah, nostalgia. There's something to be said about nostalgia, right? It's,
Right, and it's the best place to do it at the oldest
Yeah.
track in NASCAR.
Yeah. In NASCAR, you know, we've lost a lot of our nostalgia for the most part, but there's places like Martinsville, like you and I have both been to Daytona. You can feel it at Daytona.
Right. Yeah.
But this is an embracing of all of it.
Right.
And I love it, man. It's really great to see these cars out there, to see the legends go out there. I don't know. It just feels like a bigger event, and it's a nice little nice little gift for the longtime fans. You know, the race is being held on Labor Day like it's supposed to.
Yep.
Again, it's just embracing the old school. You know, in NASCAR, you know, they've been guilty of trying to do that a lot lately, or you know, or not doing it enough. Whatever you know,
Right.
whatever the internet feels like saying that day. But I don't think anybody can complain like you said, I don't think anybody can complain about this being what it is. It's really turned into a special day.
Right.
So
The question you asked about the cars, yes, we picked our top 3 last week, and I originally thought that my number 1 changed, but it didn't. I still think that 2
yeah,
car.
that's 2 car.
There's something
good
about
to round too.
that exact Miller Genuine Draft scheme that I just love. And there was nothing better than Brad jumping out in victory lane. There's the picture of him standing on the door in the retro uniform as well. It's just great. It's good stuff.
Yep, that's good. Yeah,
now-
that car felt like the 80s, didn't it? Just
Yeah.
like the late 80s,
Oh,
early
yeah.
90s, like that. That's our era.
Yes.
That car feels like that era.
Definitely. Now, number
Yep.
2, though, definitely goes to Austin Dillon in the silver number 3 car.
Oh yeah, that was a surprise. We didn't get to talk about that last week because they surprise unveiled it on us.
Yep, they did the
Beautiful.
same thing, which I didn't even know the story. I knew that it was kind of a secret when they did it originally, but I didn't realize it was a secret to like even the team. And
Yeah.
like they didn't know until they got to the track and they go to pull the car off the hauler and they lift the cover on the back and they realize it's silver. So that was
Man.
pretty neat. And they basically
Beautiful car.
yeah, essentially did the same thing here. I think an honorable mention goes to the 43 car because, I think he was overshadowed by Dylan's thing, but they came to the track originally. The scheme that they announced was a solid blue, petty blue car without sponsorship on it or without STP on it or whatever. And they did the thing like they did back when the STP sponsorship came overnight. They got the deal with, and I'm doing this in air quotes. They got the deal with
Yeah.
STP. STP signed on in the 11th hour, and they repainted again in air quotes the car
Yeah.
with the STP red on it, which
Peeled
they ended
some
up.
stickers off.
Yeah, they peeled the decals off, which was, that was really cool. That was
Yeah.
a neat thing to do. I wish they wouldn't have gotten overshadowed so much with it, but it was cool.
The 2 most iconic numbers had the 2 best throwback announcements,
Yeah, definitely.
which I really like.
Yeah.
I think there's no numbers in NASCAR that stand out more than that 3 and that 43. And when you look at the history of the sport, those are
Right.
the 2. And man, cool. I love them so much.
I
and
love
I
the
hope-
fact that they did a really good job with the American Ethanol lettering to make it look like GM Goodrich. I mean,
It did, yeah.
it was good.
Dylan's farm even looked had the old Dale Earnhardt style GM Goodrich look, which
Yep.
was pretty cool.
Yep.
Because obviously, GM Goodrich doesn't exist anymore that
Right.
I'm aware of. So we can't really sponsor a car with it anymore. So you got to do the best you can, and it looked phenomenal, especially on that Camaro body. Just it was of 90s and 2018.
Right.
Awesome.
I also really like the fact that they kind of dipped a toe in for an Earnhardt throwback that like maybe down the road we'll see a black and white number 3. Like maybe it'll happen.
Maybe. Richard said he'd never do it.
He'll do it.
He said he'd never do it.
It'll
I
happen.
don't know.
There's no way it's not going to happen.
If Dale Jr. says, "Yeah, do it," then there's no stopping it.
Right. It'll
That's
happen.
the one hold.
It's got to
Yeah.
happen.
Well, she who shall not be named has no say over it. So
Right. Don't name her. She'll sue us.
yeah, I know. NASCAR fans,
Yes. Yes.
Well, if you're a longtime NASCAR fan,
Yes. I apologize for Skype.
No, but it was good.
I apologize for Skype being jerks to us again this week. We're gonna power through and see if it improves. But if it doesn't, I'll call you back, James. But for right now, we'll stick it out.
Okay, very good.
I wish I knew if it was on your end or my end, but I don't know.
Yeah, this happens once in a while. This is the life of technology.
Charter just upped my speeds. I'm getting 80 down now, so
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's me, but it's Skype. So I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know.
Skype
I mean,
does its own thing.
I'm running really good speed tonight, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep on keeping on. Maybe
There
I'll
you go.
just sit really still. Should help.
Anything else? I mean, let's talk a little bit more about the race, I guess. Jimmy Johnson, 39th place. They had engine trouble.
Yeah. Who was good? Who was bad?
Yeah, bummer there for him. Let's see. Daniel Suarez finished 29th. Bubba Wallace back in 26th, kind of where you expect they've been running. Alex Bowman, wasn't he running decent? And then he had engine trouble or something too, right? There was some issue they had. or
William
tire issue.
Byron.
Yeah.
Byron too. Same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So, and then like I said, Jamie McMurray gets top 10. Denny Hamlin finishes top 10. Martin Truex Jr. just outside of the top 10 in 11th. They had a tire issue too, I believe it was, wasn't it? Didn't they have to come back?
Yeah.
Or he
There's a
sped or
couple
something?
there. Yeah, there was a few issues with a few different teams that gosh, I wish I could recall all of them,
I
but
know. I should start taking notes during these races. Of note too, not only did Brad Keselowski get the win, Joey Logano finishes second, so a real good day for Penske in general.
yeah,
Penske's first win at Darlington since like 1970 something.
awesome.
So that and I correct me if I'm wrong. Brad Keselowski either hadn't led a lap in the Xfinity series or at all at Darlington.
Oh, I
It was-
can
it
tell
was
you that.
one of
Hold
the
on.
two.
I can tell you that. We can find out.
I know. I know for sure Xfinity he hadn't led a lap at Darlington yet.
Thanks to Racing Reference, we might be able to find that information out. Let's take a look.
But so Brad had never won there and gets wins both days in Xfinity and Cup.
He's led coming into the race. He had led less than just around 250 laps total
Okay.
in the Cup Series.
Okay. So the Xfinity series,
But not much
must have been-
success. Yeah, not much success at all. He had a second place finish in 2015, but other than that, it's pretty spotty.
Right. Kyle Larson manages a third place finish. Kevin Harvick finishes fourth. Harvick was pretty decent too. Chase Elliott finishes fifth. Another one that he was just lurking there all day. He never really made a run for the lead, but never was really far away from it either. So
Yeah.
he was one that I was starting to question, about the midpoint of the race. Like, yeah, Chase might sneak up there. He won his first Xfinity race at Darlington. He could have.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was a
Amazing.
great race.
Absolutely amazing.
That was his championship season as well as rookie campaign.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, he's coming on. He's been good. With or without his win at Watkins Glen, Chase has been the best Hendrick car for
definitely.
2 or 3 seasons now. So definitely flexing his muscles a little bit. Hopefully can become a contender here.
Right. Eric Jones had a good day too. He finishes 8th. So, am I missing anybody? I think they kind of.
A fun stat.
Okay.
Martin Truex Jr. ends up 11th, and he has not had what NASCAR Reddit has called a pure top 10 this season. He has all of his top 10s are top 5s.
Huh.
So he either finishes in the top 5 or he doesn't finish in the top 10 at all.
It's a really interesting stat.
That's he's 15 for 15 right now on the season. Really funny. We'll talk a little bit more about Martin Truex Jr. later.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not so funny. But I just thought that was a crazy stat. So he was one position away from breaking his non-perfect top 10 streak or whatever you want to call it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk Xfinity real quick. I don't think there's a ton to talk about. Brad Keselowski gets the win there as well after Ross Chastain pretty much dominates the first half of the race or so. And
Yes.
then Mr. Chastain and Mr. Harvick get in a little bit of trouble. I know you're fired up about it, James, so take it away.
I love Kevin Harvick, but boy, was he was in the wrong here.
Yes.
And you guys heard it at the intro. Eric put the intro up before the podcast, and man, what a bad look for Kevin.
Not only was he wrong in his post-accident interview, but he was wrong, period.
Just wrong, flat out wrong, liar.
Yeah, like that wasn't Chastain's deal at all. That was Harvick's deal. That wreck was Harvick.
Yes, Harvick was on the inside. He could have just given. I don't know. I know they were kind of 3 wide there coming through. There was, I don't see Kevin's point. I don't get it. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a race car driver, but apparently he's just taking shots at Ross Chastain, saying, "Oh, he'll never drive in the high, good equipment and all this other nonsense."
Right. Well, my
Just
problem
wrong.
is that
Wrong.
Harvick at one time was trying to make it too, and got a shot in good equipment. Like, who is he to? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sorry, but Chastain's proven himself this year in his ability. Like, I don't. There's no place for him to bash his ability.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like you. Chew him up and down for getting in the rack. I know that's one
Yeah.
thing, but yeah, you're right. That's the part that really burns is the, calling the guy. I don't know. He basically called him a bum.
Right.
And
Now,
Ross
don't get me wrong.
Chastain.
Harvick has a history of this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This is
I
not
just don't
new.
know.
I think Austin Dillon would tell you.
Oh,
that
both
Kevin
of them
Harvick
boys.
has. Yeah.
Both Dillon boys. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know who. I understand Kevin's kind of like the elder statesman now,
Yeah,
but I don't get that.
I do miss Mouthy Harvick though.
Yeah, no,
I love
yeah,
Mouthy
that's true.
Harvick.
That is true. Yeah, we do like Mouthy Harvick. I just don't like how he went about that one.
But
I don't like
went
any of it.
right back to the days of the Dillon battle, parking in Chastain's pit stall. Like it was so classic Harvick.
Yeah.
I mean, we went back 10 years in Harvick's career in one night.
Yeah, he was there. Like the Kyle. Remember when he parked and Kyle Busch drove at Darlington? By
Yeah.
the way, Kyle pushed his car out of the way and fired up Kevin. We don't see him very often, so yeah, I guess that is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm excited about
That's
that.
That's the one positive right there.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't agree with 90% of the stuff that Kyle Busch says when he's fired up, but I love it.
Right.
so I'm good with
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
he
guess
had no
But
place.
this
to
isn't
say what he said.
this isn't a rival either. This
No.
is
No, this is the
I don't know,
Xfinity Series.
yeah, this is a guy coming from the Cup Series down to Xfinity and basically taking out a full-time guy who's got his best shot he's ever had in his career
Yeah.
and just MFing him, you know?
Mhm.
Like there's no other way to say it.
No,
It's-
that's pretty much the way to say it.
he just, he dragged him, man. I
Yeah.
just don't think it's cool. I don't know. This is a guy who's been driving for Johnny Davis in the old Flex Seal car for
Right.
gosh, years now. And now he gets a one shot with Chip Ganassi. He's got a couple races on the schedule, I think. But one of the best cars in the Xfinity Series, and he's out there and he's giving it to everybody. And Kevin just pile drove him.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was Kevin's fault for the accident, and then he calls out the guy's ability. It was all wrong. It was all wrong. I didn't like it. I don't like any of it except for the fact, like you said, we got fired at Harvick, which is kind of fun.
Right. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. That pretty much sums it up. I agree.
Yeah, it's not a huge topic, but I think it's, we're about to talk about the biggest story of the week, but that
Right.
probably was the biggest story of the
Yeah.
week at one time.
Yeah.
So
before we talk about the biggest story of the week, I just want to point out I'm watching Twitter here on Twitter feeds running on my screen, and Aaron Bearden tweets they just finished heat number 10 at Indianapolis where they're running the sprint cars on the dirt.
That's awesome.
Heat 10.
yeah, it's a big field.
Oh,
It's a
man.
big money payday.
Yeah. I was bummed when they announced this race that I hadn't decided to go to the Brickyard because I would have liked to go to this one. So
Yeah, it looks cool.
I don't
Now,
know if I'd have been able to pull off a Wednesday night down there, but
is that track permanently going to stay at
it looks
Indy?
pretty darn permanent.
I don't know if they're not gonna rip it down or anything, right? That's there.
It might be. I mean, the stands look legit. I mean, it looks pretty legit.
For those who don't know, they plopped a dirt track inside the massive Indianapolis Motor Speedway,
Right.
which is just huge on the infield.
They
So
got lots of room. There's
there's a golf course in there.
There's like 6 holes from the golf course in the
Yeah.
track.
And the Pagonia. Don't forget
Yeah.
NASCAR Chasm's favorite thing, the Pagonia. That's in there.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the big news, James. We've avoided it long enough.
Yeah, I can't believe it took us this long to get here.
I
But
know, right? You
Yeah.
go ahead and break the news. Break the big news, James.
like I said last week, toot my own horn a little bit. Martin Truex Jr. is not going back to the 78. In fact, 78 is gone after this year.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
Absolutely crazy.
You and I were talking before the podcast, and we both still are processing it, and we don't know how we're going to talk about it. But we decided we're just going to try to talk our way through this thing. But I don't know where to begin other than God dang. That's
Yeah,
a bummer.
It's like
It's terrible.
I don't know. I mean, I don't. I don't
I know,
it's really difficult. It's insane to really think about it. I mean,
It's sad. It's sad.
I mean, somebody compared it to if the Philadelphia Eagles didn't come back as a team next year.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not exaggerating to say that. I mean, this is pretty huge.
Yeah.
And now the thing is, and I was talking with somebody about it today. Actually, I was talking to my buddy Ryan, who's a follower of the podcast and what we do. So Ryan Collier, a little shout out to you. I was talking to him about it today, and really, this goes back a year. I mean, this goes back to last July at the Brickyard when Kyle and Truex wrecked, and Kyle's crew chief gets into it with the crew members on Truex's team, and then Joe Gibbs pulls the crew members, and because the crew members were from Joe Gibbs, that's when that was this first sign that this was coming, because I don't know any of the inner workings of this. I know nothing more about it than any of you guys do.
It was the first sign of turbulence of the whole thing.
But
right?
Yeah, exactly. And I tell you, the cause of this is not just the sponsorship. The cause of this is the sponsorship coupled with, I guarantee you, that Joe Gibbs has raised his price.
Yeah, that's what we've got a couple of links in the show notes, but that's exactly what Nate Ryan put in his two writers I think we both really respect. I think probably as much as anybody in the garage. It's Pockrass and Nate Ryan.
Right.
And both
I
of
like
them
that Pockrass is just Pockrass.
Pockrass is, yeah, well, we know. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right.
We know.
I know.
Call him Bob or call him Pockrass. Either way, you know who he is. He only needs one name. He's like Madonna, like that. But both guys did two different types of think pieces. Bob had his piece, and then Nate kind of did like a Q&A, and sounds like Joe Gibbs may have doubled the price to compete.
But I mean, what would you do if you're getting beat by the guy buying equipment from you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Rick Hendrick had the same thing with Stuart Haas.
Yeah, and what happened?
Well, Stuart Haas ended up leaving.
Right.
But I felt like it was a good partnership for a while. You know, Hendrick stayed with him through 2 championships.
I don't think you can function as a team if the team that's getting stuff from you is benefiting more than you are.
True.
I mean, it doesn't make business sense. And now if Furniture Row had sponsors willing to step up to cover that extra cost, then yeah, I mean, this partnership could continue. But
yeah, and that's the thing. If 5-Hour Energy just would have stayed on, or they would have found us, you know, if they would have given Furniture Row time, I guess, quote unquote time, to get another sponsor, then yeah, we're not worried about this. And but the warning signs really were on the wall. It was probably before Michigan, right? When Truex was like, "Yeah, I'd love to get something together."
Actually, it was Kentucky. I was there for it. It was the press conference in Kentucky. That was the first time. I think it was who's the guy from Dustin Long from NBC Sports asked what the contract situation was, and the answer was more than I expected. It was different than I expected it to be, and maybe it had been asked before that, but that was the first press conference I was in where it was asked. And suddenly you went, huh, that's an interesting answer.
It was worded really weird. And that was when...
Well, then Truex won, and they asked Barney some questions after the race, too. And there was another, maybe it's a possibility. Yeah,
he said not being a team in 2019 is not an option.
Right.
I believe is pretty much how he worded it.
Yeah. And that was the one that really perked me up. It's again, I believe that was at Kentucky. Both, and I'm like,
well, you and I talked about it.
Yeah, wait a minute. How is that even part of the discussion? Like, we didn't even think that was
why would a defending champion be, shut down? I mean, why are we talking about that?
Right. So yeah, and so things spiraled pretty quick at this point, and now they've announced that they are not back next year.
So I'm just looking at this. This is just a curiosity thing.
Yeah.
Going into Kentucky, Truex had finishes of 1, 4, 2, and 1.
Leaving Kentucky, his finishes are 4, 15, 2, 14, 30, and 11. Something to think about there.
Well, here, let me expound on that, or let me
just a timing thing that I kind of find interesting on the performance side of this.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question. Does he win again this year?
I
say
no.
My head. I say no.
I think they do. I think they win one.
I don't
maybe
think they do, and I think it was really interesting that both you and I did not name them as one of the Final Four.
Well, we talked last week. I mean, this goes back to our podcast last week.
Right.
You and I were already starting to dismiss them.
Right.
Like, this is too much turmoil. And now
it's a lot of turmoil now.
A lot of turmoil. But that car is still dang fast.
But you got a lot of guys that don't know where they're going next year. 2 guys probably know.
Pern and Truex are probably okay, but
yeah, Pern
then
is
again-
okay if he wants to go somewhere though, because Pern was saying if he wasn't leaving
didn't like-
Denver,
didn't like North Carolina.
right? So
Yeah.
will he go? I can't imagine
think-
he wouldn't.
Well, somebody's going to give him a boatload of money.
Oh
and he's-
yeah,
yeah. I think I
Yeah.
can put up with
It-
being in Carolina.
I think it's okay. You've got in here where will they end up? I think it's pretty easy that he's going to end up at Gibbs, and that,
Toyota. Yeah, Suarez is out.
yeah, he's going to take Suarez's ride. Suarez is going to go to Levine, and Levine's going to have the partnership with JGR.
Poor Daniel Suarez.
Yeah, yeah, it's too bad. Well, maybe he'll go over there and have some success.
Maybe. But it's not like he's been bad with Gibbs. He's just building his.
No,
you know?
he's actually been really good.
Yeah, he's building a resume. He's a rookie, or well, not a rookie this year, but he's young guy, sophomore campaign,
Right.
Xfinity champ.
Well, I mean,
You
look
know.
at both Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott didn't win till their third season. So
Well, does the Eris sponsorship stay with Gibbs or Suarez? I guess I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Well, and the only reason
Bass Pro Shops is probably going with Truex, right? I mean,
well, and that's exactly what I was going to say. If you want to talk about relationships, Bass Pro Shops and Tony Stewart
true.
go back many years, over a decade. They go back.
So do you think Bass Pro leaves Truex and goes to Stuart Haas, or do you think
I-
Truex might go to Stuart Haas?
I'm not ruling out that 41 car just yet. I think Gibbs is the favorite.
I would
but
like that more than the Gibbs move.
If I'm Truex, I'm considering that
Yeah.
pretty heavily. However, Ford is switching to the Mustang next year, so there could be a couple of growing pains that go along with that too. So maybe sticking with Toyota is a good thing.
Right.
I don't know, man. Truex has been really good in that Gibbs equipment for 3 seasons now. To leave it, that it would still feel like home, I guess, if I was him.
Right.
And this is all speculation on my part. I don't know anything, but boy, I don't know. We don't have to get too much into the financial what ifs, health of NASCAR stuff, because I think that's been beaten to death. But this situation's kind of like sweeping everything under the rug for so long that now, it's like, oh, the 78's shutting down, and you look at the rug and it's a mountain of
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me, and it's not the end of the world. But boy, is it one heck of a gut punch, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. I don't want to be all doom and gloom. That's not. I don't think you and I are doom and gloom guys.
Well,
Try to.
I think we talked about it a little bit, and sorry if I cut you off. Skype's
No,
still
you're
being
fine.
stupid.
I'll take over. No, take.
I think that NASCAR is working toward a solution. I hope they're working toward a solution. I feel like it's not. I mean, this is a big group here. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and you only have to look at the schedule changes to know that. I mean, we talked about, I think it was last week, about what happens when you take a date from a track, that you now have all these people that depend on this, and this track that depends on this revenue. Everything is like that. Everything has these moving parts, so one little change affects everything. And so these tracks are counting on that money. So let's play this game. NASCAR improves the revenue sharing, gives more money to the teams. Who's going to lose it? The tracks are going to lose it, right? Because they're the ones who get the majority of that money. So now you're going to take a date away from these tracks and television money. How do you do that? So now you're putting tracks out of business. So it's not as easy as just saying tomorrow, oh, we're going to change it. It's broken. Let's change it. You have to slowly change it. And I don't know, we might be in a point that the sport got too big and there's too much money being spent and it needs a major restructuring to survive. I mean, at any point, if you continue to grow, you're going to, I mean, unless you're Apple, you're going to bottom out at some point. And I mean,
Yeah.
Apple or Amazon, I guess. Both of them are now $1 trillion companies, by the way.
Oh, right.
But I mean,
Well, wait.
I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but
Yeah. Well, this is a problem. We've been talking about this since 2008,
right.
and back then we blamed it's the economy, and then things change. Yeah, the economy was a big part of it, but now it's not so much the economy; it's that these businesses that invest in NASCAR are strategizing differently, and they don't see any value here.
Right.
And that's their prerogative, right? Lowe's has had probably the most successful sponsorship in the history of NASCAR, and they looked at it this year and said, yeah, we can do without Jimmy Johnson. It's been a great relationship. It's been fun, but we're gonna let him go.
Right.
And we have a 7-time champion, the greatest driver in the history of the sport, has no sponsor right now for next year. You've got the defending champion without a ride, which he'll be fine. He shouldn't be worried about.
I mean, you can even argue he's without a sponsor too for 14
Sure.
races.
Yeah. Yep. 14 races.
That's huge.
Yeah, and it's not unprecedented.
Right.
Tony Stewart, is a recent one where he won the championship, went through another season, and had to find a sponsor the very next year.
Mm-hmm.
Old Spice was done with them after years of sponsorship with him. Tony Stewart was fine. He found Mobil 1. But even the best team in NASCAR right now, Stewart-Haas Racing, they've got 2 cars that are unfunded. They're not fully funded. Their owner just happens to be one of the richest guys in the country, in Gene Haas, and he owns an F1 team and can foot the bill for, Boyer and Kurt Busch to keep going. But Barney Visser doesn't have that. Barney Visser, he built this thing, with his furniture store, his furniture chain, and he just, I don't blame him.
A furniture chain that doesn't have a lot of locations in NASCAR markets.
Yep.
And thus makes it difficult for him to continue putting that furniture chain on the car as a sponsor.
Yep.
I mean, he has to look at it from a business side of things. A
guy who nearly, I don't want to say he nearly died last year, but he had a scare. He had a health scare, and is just prioritizing his life differently. Sounds like his family's not really into the racing thing. So he's, he just doesn't see the value in it anymore. I don't, man, there's a lot of moving parts here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, we're never going to pinpoint one thing that's the problem.
Right.
There's a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And you sent me a text. You and I were texting earlier this week, and you sent a text. I thought you nailed it. There's no quick fix.
Right.
There's no easy solution, right? But man, I just like you said just a few minutes ago, man, I hope they're working on something, because this can't be. You can't have your best team, leave. You just can't. It's a bad look for the strength of the sport. We want these guys to stay around. We want them to be competitive.
One of my good Twitter buddies, right before we started the podcast, tweeted, Brian Keselowski posted, all this talk about how racing has to become cheaper to survive. And I'm reminded how Trans Am was dying for years until they came up with the neat spec type series in TA2 or Trans Am 2. Now there's so many cars, TA2 has their own races. Maybe instead of fixing a series, start a new one. And I replied, that's a super idea. If only there was an example somewhere that we could look at to see how it would work out. Let me think. IndyCar, maybe?
Yeah, that worked out well.
Yeah, I mean, IndyCar's still picking the pieces back up from that. And now, I will say, IndyCar's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper to participate in than it used to be.
They're making gains.
That used to be the series. You used to spend way more in IndyCar than you did in NASCAR, and it's now reversed.
Yep.
But man, I don't want to go to a competing series. I don't want to. And a lot of people were talking about ARCA and NASCAR. That's why NASCAR bought ARCA, because now ARCA can't compete with NASCAR. And let me just say, the Orange Cone has been tweeting, friend of the podcast, Orange Cone, has been tweeting about it. And he has been talking about some insider somewhat information into that deal. And let me just say, you can trust without revealing Orange Cone's identity, you can trust what Orange Cone is saying. And it was never never really an option for ARCA to compete with NASCAR. They've always worked together. That was not an option. So that NASCAR did not buy up ARCA to keep ARCA from starting a rival series. It just, there's no. So
yeah. Yep.
And if you know who Orange Cone is, he knows the answer to that.
Well, there is something to be said about complacency. And maybe NASCAR ownership is complacent. The France family has been comfortable for a long time. the Speedway Motorsports and ISC, they've been pretty happy. They're getting paid. Why would they fight for change when
Right.
the change is going right in their pocket?
Right. So
Um,
let me ask you a question.
Yeah, hit me.
And
What
this
do you
is
got?
not in the notes. I didn't warn you about this.
That's good. No, I
I did tweet about it this week, though. So right now we have a situation where we have a driver that has no ride that could end up at a team that right now is full of drivers. Last year we had something
I know where
similar.
you're going with this. I know where you're going.
Last year we had something similar with a 4-car team that needed to make some room, and Casey Kane was out of a job and actually got paid to continue driving this year for another team because he was still under contract. So is it time for NASCAR to look at this 4-car limit to teams and say, okay, the economy's changed, things have changed. We do have a team out there that could field a 5th car. And in the interest of keeping competitive cars and the possibility that somebody might create a powerhouse, is it worth? I mean, do we feel like there's no limit in the truck series? Do we feel like ThorSport is too much of a presence in the truck series that we shouldn't allow that in the Cup series? Do you think it's time to look at that limit, or are you good with the limit?
I mean, I don't mind it now. We have to have stability, and if anything, Joe Gibbs, Rick Hendrick, Tony Stewart, Jack Roush, Roger Penske, those guys are stable.
Right.
But even you look at Richard Childress, but you look at those guys. Childress is downsized.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Roush, he at one time was a 5-car team. They can
Right.
barely get.
Well, they were a 6 or 7-car team at one point.
Yeah, they had cars everywhere.
And, I mean, Penske downsized and then now added the team again.
Yep, Penske did. They're trying to get it. They're trying to build it back, but they probably have no plans for a 4th car anytime
Right.
soon. And Roush, struggling with 2. Childress downsized. And Stuart Haas has 2 cars that aren't fully funded. So
why don't we just take the 4-car limit and make it a 6-car limit again?
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think it solved. One thing I guess it does solve.
Do you feel like Joe Gibbs would? I mean, obviously we know nothing of the inner workings, but do you feel like Joe Gibbs would be in a position to have a 5th team if NASCAR didn't have the 4-car limit?
He might be in the best position. He's got the best roster.
Right.
But he had a hard time going to 4 for the longest time.
True.
Until Carl Edwards came along.
The other interesting one is Junior Motorsports. In that, now I know Junior said multiple times that he has no interest in being a Cup owner. But maybe that might be an option. I'm trying to think. There was another deal somewhere. Oh, somebody was talking about the whole Kyle Busch thing, and if Kyle stayed with Gibbs, but brought his own team up, he can't do that because of the way the rule is written. He's part of a 4-car team, so he cannot have another team.
Yeah, he can't do the Dale Earnhart deal.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the one I was thinking, not Junior Motorsports. I was thinking.
Yeah, but GMS, GMS is trying to get in.
Right.
There's a few teams.
I feel like if you allow no limit, then you could put yourself in a position where a team would have too much power to influence what's happening, and also threaten to leave and kill the sport.
But, and on the other side of that, Eric, are other potential owners looking at what happened to Barney Visser and going, well, throw their hands up. There's no reason for me to go.
Yeah.
Why, that guy climbed the mountain and had to leave.
I would think about it.
I mean, yeah. Like Levine Family Racing, they may be in a good spot here because it looks like they're going to get that alliance. But how many Barney Vissers are out there that are going to invest like he did? I mean, he struggled. That team did absolutely nothing. Had a small breakthrough with Regan Smith, another small breakthrough with Kurt, and then hit the ball out of the park with Truex and Cole Pern.
Right.
But that team was irrelevant for the longest time. And had drivers who just, they were just, guys out there collecting checks. Not to be too frank about it, but, Joe Nemechek, Kenny Wallace, guys like that, they're not competitive. So to go through all of that and to say, you know what, yeah, I've been down that road. It's not worth it for me to step back. I could spend less and stick around.
Right.
But I could just be done, and he chose to be done. That's a shame.
Yeah.
That's a shame. I just you know, I like your idea for the most part because I just don't think there's going to be very many Barney Vissers anymore, and that's, you know, we need, you know, we talked a couple weeks ago on the podcast of who's the next generation of owners. We just don't have, you know,
Right.
we don't have anybody. You know, we have our Gibbs and Penske's and that's it. But Barney Visser looked like he was building something, and it came crashing down. It's a story of triumph and tragedy to the highest extent.
Now, let me say this before we move on to the next topic. This solidifies there is no effing way that Kyle Busch is coming to Cup with his team. There's no way. I'm sorry. No way.
Maybe. I don't know. I still have a little bit of faith that will happen someday.
Someday. I'll give you. I'm still on board with someday. But in the next 3 years, no.
Probably not.
No, not going to happen.
Probably not.
All right. Let's move on to the next topic real quick. We'll bust through this kind of fast because we don't have a whole lot of details. But Matt Weaver tweeted out tonight, and there was a few other tweets going around about it. Apparently, they're getting close to some agreements, some major discussions going on between Marcus Smith of Speedway Motorsports and Nashville Fairgrounds and the Nashville mayor about bringing NASCAR back to the fairgrounds track and making some improvements to the track, having a public/private partnership with the track and SMI. I mean, it sounds like a good deal, right?
Yeah, NASCAR racing is coming to Nashville. It's going to happen.
I think it is. I really think it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
More short tracks.
It'd be really interesting to see what kind of improvements they make there. And man, I would love to see them find a way to get a Cup race there. But I'd be perfectly happy with just an Xfinity and a Truck Series race there, or just one of the two.
Yeah. Yeah, something, you know. I mean, I would love to see the Cup teams get there somehow someday.
Well,
I mean, that's a pipe dream, but.
And, you know, the other thing, too, to look at is that, and we don't have this in the notes, but some investors purchased Rockingham, too, this week or last week. Yeah. And so no plans have been made there yet or announced. But who knows? Maybe there's something in the future for Rockingham, too. So
yeah, they were talking about doing the electric dance festival type thing out there.
Right.
I did see that from Gluck. But other than that, yeah, if we can get these tracks coming back around, I like it. Now, I'd love to see Rockingham back.
Speaking of racetracks, we're losing Texas World Speedway this week. I don't know if you saw that, James, but they are tearing that down.
That's a shame.
So that's a bummer. Michigan's clone, basically, out there in Texas.
A really cool looking racetrack, by the way, if you just look at it.
Basically Michigan if you put higher banking on it.
Yeah, really cool.
It was that dream of what Michigan would be like as an actual super speedway track. I don't know what the banking was out there. But that track was fast for the Cup cars. If they couldn't really do much with it because it was bumpy as crap by the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a hodgepodge now.
Yeah.
But
it's pretty much a road course.
Yeah.
Or it was. But yeah, Texas World Speedway is pretty awesome.
Yep. So, go on YouTube and look up some old clips. NASCAR ran there a few times.
Yep.
But yeah, they built that whole track, and NASCAR only ran there a couple of years.
Yeah, and the guy, I guess the head guy who moved the dirt was the same guy that did it for Michigan. So.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, pretty neat. But too bad that one's going away.
Yeah.
All right. This week, James, it is the Brickyard 400. Actually, it is what the heck is the stupid thing called?
First of all,
Big Machine Vodka 400 at the Brickyard.
Almighty. Just like I did the show notes on purpose.
I know. I knew you did.
Oh yeah, I'm not putting Bojangles Southern 500. It's the Southern 500.
It used to be the Mountain Dew Southern 500, man. Come on. That one's had a sponsor for a while.
Yeah, but Bojangles, get out of here.
It's a grocery store, isn't it, Bojangles?
I thought it was a chicken.
No, you're right. It's
place.
like a KFC place, isn't it? It's like KFC.
Yeah.
You're right.
Like a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, you're right. All right, so Brickyard 400s this weekend. James, who you got? You get the first pick.
Oh, man. Hard not to pick Kyle Busch with the first pick, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of owned the place last couple of years, except for his crash last year.
We're not outlawing him? I'm good. We don't need to. I'm good with not outlawing him at all.
We haven't picked the top three guys in a while. You want to open it back up?
I don't care. We can open it up.
Yeah, screw it. Let's open it back up.
Of course.
Cow-
Of course. You
cow-
got the first
Oh, boy.
pick.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
See, I'm making the rules as I go.
Yeah.
I like it.
Let me pull up my list here because I'm not even ready for this. I think I would have been.
Chris Buescher, by the way, I'm looking at the average finish. He only has 2 races at Indy, but 11.5 average finish. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, dang. Who do I want to pick at Indy? Like, there's nobody. Huh.
Something I did for my fantasy team was I looked at the Pocono bats
Yeah, that's
this
kind of,
year.
that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm going to go Pocono. I'm going to think Pocono too, but I'm going to go further back in time for Pocono. And I'm going to say Denny Hamlin gets himself a win this weekend.
He is due for his 1 win of the
He's
season.
Gotta get one, right?
Yeah, he does.
So
you don't think that possibly somebody from the outside of the top 16 is going to try to do something here to
I think they're going to
steal it?
try, but nobody's going to do it.
right.
Best chance, someone like a William Byron to me.
Yeah.
And maybe that's, you know what? Let me pick him for my dark horse. I'll say William Byron for my dark horse.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
There you go. I'll go with, and this is just pure. He's going to gamble. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
It's a good one.
Yep, he's right there.
He's gonna
and
wreck.
he's got to win. There's no points drama heading into this race. It's all about winning your end.
He's going to crash. He's going to he's going to drive like he did at Talladega or at Daytona.
Wreck them all.
Yeah, he's going to be wrecking Ricky.
Well, he'll be easy. Ricky Spinhouse.
Yeah.
He's going to be in the John Deere colors this week again.
Oh,
so...
are they running the classic scheme again?
No, not the classic. He's
Oh.
actually got his own version of the John Deere scheme.
That was a good looking car.
Yeah, I did like that car a lot.
There were a lot
I
of
like the
good-looking
new one. I
cars.
like the new one a lot too.
I haven't seen the new one. I'll have to check it out.
I love that John Deere's back in the sport. Come on, man.
Yeah, no, you can't hate on John
NASCAR.
Deere. I'm good with
Oh, yeah.
that. Definitely good with that. All right, anything else we need to talk about?
Well, we covered that Furniture Row thing.
Yeah.
I felt, coming into the podcast tonight, that topic just probably the most daunting topic
I'm with you.
we've ever faced on this podcast. Like, what do we do?
Yeah.
And
I don't
we'll
know.
know.
The Brian France thing was pretty big too, but this is I
think we had. I think you and I had more fun with Brian.
I think so too.
I think we were both. See, that's the thing about the Brian France thing. We were we didn't want to admit it, but deep down inside, we were a little bit happy.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible thing for me to say. I don't want to wish bad on anybody, but come on.
That is true. Yeah.
Shame on me. Sorry, everybody.
All right, James, where can they find you on social media during the week?
At James Cush on Twitter.
You can find me on Twitter as well at TSuperSpeedway. You can find the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/TheSuperSpeedway. Our website is thesuperspeedway.com. You can find the podcast on there. There's some other stuff, including coverage for some of the races that we attended this year. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. If you want to support what we're doing, become a patron at patreon.com/TheSuperSpeedway. Starting to get that down now. I got a good flow going with those.
You really ended the podcast very well there. That was awesome.
Well, I didn't end it yet. We're not done yet, James. I mean, we could go on for another 30, 40 minutes for all we know.
We got 2 outs to go.
Yeah,
2 outs to go
we
Bob and I.
probably will, in the post podcast anyway, because we talk forever usually in that. But
Yes, we do.
yeah. All right, James. We'll be back next week. We will do our brackets next week. If you want to get on the brackets, submit yours on our Facebook page, and we'll mention you in the show for sure. Again, facebook.com/TheSuperSpeedway. And we'll know next week who's going to be in the playoffs, who's going to be competing for the championship. So
Yeah, we break it down.
there you go. Let's go to Brickyard this weekend, and we will talk to you guys next week. Let me turn my volume down so don't blow your ears out. Until then, let's go racing.